All right. It shows we've got about 15 people, so we'll give it another minute or two, and then get started. All right. Can everyone hear me? Okay. I got a nod. Ooh, yay. Okay. We will get started. Respect everyone's time here. All right. Brianna is going to start sharing her screen. Perfect on cue. All right. So emoji design this month. This one's super cool. They're 40 USBs are the only shipment. They're the cool ones. They're like flat, like a business card size with our logos on it. Make sure you practice opening at least one of them. You don't press too hard, but it opens up and out, so it's a little weird. So make sure you do that beforehand so you feel comfortable opening those quickly. It's just a little tab, and you press down on like the bottom. I should have brought one with me. Brandon and I are presenting at a conference tomorrow in New York for the Ed Portal stuff. So I did bring one. I can show you at the end. They're a little tricky to open, so maybe practice that. And then, okay, I'll look at the chat in a minute, sorry. Each participant will get one with their design saved on it. So we'll export those, and Jess will show us how to do that here in a minute. But you can use vector.com. You can use the online version, or you download and install to the computer. Maybe think about doing that after the first session if there's time to download that and install on the computer. It shouldn't take too long, but you would rely less on Wi-Fi, and we know how the stores do struggle sometimes with that across the board. So if you have time, it might be worth doing. You also need to log into an account to save and export the files, I believe. Jess, you can talk on this more. You're the pro with Vector. But if so, just go ahead and use your Gmail, so your lab, bzlab.indy, or wherever you are at gmail.com, and the password again is the typical 1234 all capital PLTW asterisk 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 asterisk. I had to make sure I said that right. So all of those computers must be logged in, or they won't be able to save and export, is what I believe. And okay, Wendy, my box said it was part of a set and do not separate, but I only got one box. So we reuse those boxes. So last month when we ordered the printer paper for the extra paper for the Canon selfie printers, we ordered sets of boxes and we gave you each one. And then I repurposed the boxes because they were perfect size for those USBs. So in that box, there should only be 40. And I tried to put a sticker over the labels that said this is a set, do not separate, but I don't think I got them all. So make sure you have 40 or around 40. After a little bit, it was really hard to count those. So everyone should just have one box or one like envelope looking thing. All right, Brianna will take it over from here and go over the next two.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So for next month's lab, we're doing coding and game design. All we're going to ship you that month is going to be the student guides. So really easy shipment. We'll send it to the same place as we always have. And then we are planning to tell the parents after this next lab that we are sunsetting the program. So if you get any questions, just say that Verizon's still working on a plan and that an announcement should be coming to their email soon. So we're planning to do it like that Monday or Tuesday right after this next lab. If you get any questions, feel free to direct them to us. They can always email that bil@pltw.org, and we're happy to answer any questions they have about us ending the program. And that's all I have. So then we can, and I would just want to let everyone know that next week I will be on PTO. So I'll have my phone on me, but if you need anything, it's best to reach out to Natalie next week. All right, so now Jessica, I will stop sharing my screen and you can take it over.
Are you switching it to Jessica? Oh, perfect. You're on it. Ooh, cool. All right, I'll stop. Hey, Jess, if you're talking, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we are getting ready for the Emoji lab, pretty straightforward lab. We use the vector program. In DC, we have it downloaded on the computers, so that's made it pretty simple in terms of the use of the Wi-Fi. And before the lab begins, I like to just go and open the program up so it's just already on the screens for students. And when they open the program, hold on. There you go. They'll have a blank screen that looks like this, and their task is to design their own emoji. So for most students, they're pretty familiar with what an emoji is, what it looks like. I like to talk through just a quick review of what are our options here for tools on the side. So we go through the different shapes that they have access to, the pen tool, the pencil, text. We skip the upload image, and then they have the more shapes. So we just do like a quick review, and then that's when I break it down and we go step by step together. I like to give them, I pass out a sheet that looks like this in case students might be feeling a little stuck on like, where do I want to start, or what kind of emotion do I want to go with. I suggest just having something nearby for them to take a peek at. And then we come here to the ellipse tool. To make a perfect circle, you hold the shift button down and click and drag. Sometimes for younger students, that click and drag can be tricky. I do find that this lab's a little easier when using the mouse attached to the computer than the trackpad, especially for the younger kids. And then for students who might not be familiar with design programs, just going over some of the basics, that when you have a shape selected, you're going to see this box appear around it that has the small white squares, which become the handles, and that is going to be their ability to resize their object. And if they want to keep their proportions exactly as they are, to hold that shift button down while they're doing it. So that'll be the first thing, because you have a lot of kids, they'll click away and they'll be like, I can't change anything. So always remind them to click back on the shape that they're trying to change. You'll also notice this blue outline of the shape. That's how they know that will be the shape that they're making changes to. So once we have our first circle down, we go into how they can change the color. So the way to change the color, you'll see where this green rectangle is. You just click on that, and they'll see this little white circle inside. that will allow them to change the shade. So if this is green, if I want to go a little bit darker, I want to go lighter, I can make that change. If I want to change the color, I just slide it here on the color bar. And so if you want to do more of a traditional emoji, you might move here into the yellow and then move it towards like a lighter yellow to look more like the ones on our phones. So that's the first step. After that, we talk about some other ways they can manipulate the colors. So there is the linear gradient. And when they click on their shape, they go into the color box again. And you'll notice that this line appears. They click on either of these circles. That's how they can change what colors are appearing in the gradient. So if I wanted to go back and maybe start with my yellow at the top, if I go along the line, and you'll see that this circle appears. That's how I can add a new color to my gradient where I drag. I'm using a trackpad, and it is a little trickier. Wherever I drag my circle, that'll change where the gradient is stopping. I can also move the direction of the gradient, so sometimes students like to play around with that. You can also make it a radial gradient, and it works the same way where you'll see the different points where you can change the colors, and you can also shorten and change where that gradient is starting and ending. So those are just some ways that they can play around with the colors for their emoji. After that, I like to talk a bit more. Students will be like, well, I want to make eyes. And so we really just rely heavily on like, well, what shapes do eyes look like? What shape do teardrops look like? And really pushing their thinking around how they can use some of these extra shapes to recreate what they'd like to do. So for example, I've had students use the hearts before as like little ponytails if they wanted to make that on their emoji. The other thing is they can right click and press duplicate if they need a second. And you'll also notice once it's selected, if you hover just around the edge, that's where you're going to get your rotate tool so they can move that around. Sometimes when students are working in layers, they'll need to access something that's on the bottom layer. You can come over here to the layers and click so that you can access whatever that might be. So like if I wanted to get to the
Uh-oh.
I'll be honest, the pen tool is a little tricky even for me.
Hey, Jessica. Sorry, our screen.
So we always kind of maybe.
Can anyone hear me?
Click, that'll create these little handles off of the red. And you can use those handles to bend the lines. So sometimes the more advanced students understand using these bars a little bit more to manipulate the lines. I will say it's been harder for younger kids usually, but older students tend to get the hang of it. The other tool, if the pen tool is too tricky, is just to have them use the pencil tool, which will just go along whatever line they create. They can also add in some text if they want. I've had students do that before, add something onto their face. They can really get as creative as they want to get with that. And that's kind of like the long and short of how to make the emoji. When they're finished, they're going to come up here to the upper right-hand side that says export. They will click export, and they will save it as a JPEG. And that point, they'll download it. So you can see mine downloaded here as a file. And then I would go into my downloads folder. You can see my emojis here, and they'll click and drag it over to the USB that's plugged in. And that's how they save it and take it home with them. We have tried having students email the emoji to themselves once they've done it as a JPEG. For some students, it'll show up on their phone, and for others, it won't. So oftentimes kids are like, great, I made this. I want to actually use it. So if it's not working in email format, I just have them take a picture of it on their phone and tell them to use it that way. But if anyone has any ideas of how to make that a more seamless transition, that would be really welcomed. And then just finally, I can send these out, but these are some of the emojis that students created when we did the Verizon Take Your Child to Work Day event a couple weeks ago. And I thought these were some really creative ideas that students had. And it's really once they understood how the colors work, the shapes work, they were able to kind of get really creative with what they were trying to convey. So that's it for emojis. Pretty simple one.
Perfect. Thank you, Jess. That was great. My computer had froze. So repost any questions you guys had, or just unmute yourself and ask. It's totally cool too. Is there a need to change? No, you can just export it the way it is, because we're not printing anything, Stacy. So luckily this one is not as complicated with the JPEG versus whatever else this month. So that one's not too bad, but you will do the drag and drop over to their USB drive. So you'll need to save it or drag it from the folder to the USB drive like last month for some of you guys. Or the kids can probably do that, to be honest. Most of them, hopefully. Any questions?
If kids finish early, I just have them make a second one. And also, since I teach literacy, I'm always asking them, what emotion are you trying to convey? And what's your evidence? How do you know you've done that? So you have some other ways you can push their thinking around what they're making. What emotion are they trying to convey with their emoji? Yeah,
that's a great idea. Also, Jess, will you email me that page you use, and I can send it out to everyone?
Yeah.
Too, because that'll help. You guys can just show it on the screen on your guys' laptop too, which would be good. There's a video for this, so play that, and then also you can just read through the instructor guide as well if you're more of that kind of learner. So we have all the options for you guys. This is recorded. As always, we will send back out if you need any tricks or tips or refreshers. But this one is really creative, really fun. I would suggest playing around and making your own emoji beforehand, so you're confident to answer any questions really quickly on, or help guide them to answer their own questions when they come up. What key did you hold down to make the perfect circle? I believe the shift key, correct, Jess?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Perfect. Shift key. I can include that in the follow-up email as well. So hold down shift, like you would select a bunch of cells in Excel or bunch of files. Yeah.
Oh, I had one more thing I wanted to add.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought of. Sometimes when students are working, they'll build their circle here, or they might do it all the way up here. And so they'll still be able to select it, but they will say, the color is not as bright. That's because they're off of the workspace, and that workspace is what's ultimately getting saved. So what is appearing within this faint gray rectangle here, that's their workspace. And if that happens, just help them drag it back down into the workspace. And getting used to, there are also the scroll bars, and sometimes kids will scroll too far and they think they've lost their work, but they haven't. Those are some of the problems that have come up before too.
Oh, that's a good call. I didn't even notice that little box. Also, yeah, she with the trackpad can be difficult, so use the mouses and the mouse pads that everyone has. Jess, were you able to save that without logging in?
Yes, I've never
Oh,
logged in, even when we did it at Verizon headquarters.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I
So
was just, I don't know, doing it.
if they wanted to like save the file to be able to go back and work on it again, then
Okay.
they log in. So I do say that up front that when they save their emoji, it won't be a working file that they can open up later. But if they really enjoyed this, they could go home and make their own vector login for free and
Okay.
just do what they've done.
Cool. So everyone scratch that. Don't log in unless you absolutely have to, because that's just a whole other step. I missed that little button up on the top right, third one in for exporting earlier. Yep, that one. Perfect. So just go ahead and use that. That'll be great.
I will say if you are relying heavily on the Wi-Fi, if like you're getting kicked off of that, it won't save their work because they're not logged in. So that's a consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's not downloaded.
Okay, that's a good call. So you're saying if you're relying heavily on Wi-Fi, maybe do log in?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. I will include that in the follow-up. Great. As always, reach out with any questions or tips or tricks you guys find. There's no space on my student computers to download the software. Oh, really? That is interesting. I've downloaded on the new blue ones before. If you have a downloaded thing already, maybe go ahead and take that off because I was able to download it before unless they changed it. I will look again back on Monday in the office with one of those blue computers to see, because I didn't think it was that big, but I'll figure that out, Adam. But if you had downloaded like MakerBot, maybe try taking that off, uninstalling and deleting that, maybe making room for this. Can I make a sad face? Yes, that will be your practice one. Is there a quick way to delete the student's work in order to get, I don't know, can you?
I just closed the program. I closed the program out and open it again.
Oh, okay. That
Or I
works.
have the students do that before they leave.
Oh, nice. Put on the students. Yep. Have them exit out.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good. Be sure if you guys are using the Wi-Fi, at least for the first, that you go through and like accept the permissions and whatnot of the store. Sometimes that's an issue with things, to make sure when you log on, it'll let it load, so it brings you to their main page and says, do you accept the permissions and whatnot, and you hit yes. I'm not explaining that very well, but I hope all of you understand on a public Wi-Fi like that. If not, I can walk you through that more. But as always, any questions, shoot them over, email, text, whatever. We are always here. And again, I wanted to touch on Brianna is taking PTO on the actual lab day. So if you guys have anything in the chat, I will be on. My phone, I will be on. My email, I will be on. So absolutely just hit me up. If it's an absolute emergency and for some reason I'm not responding right away, or within 5 minutes, I would say, most likely I'll be helping someone else, then I would say maybe consider reaching out. But if at all possible, keep it all to me. This is Natalie speaking. Again, if you didn't recognize my voice already, keep it all to me so she can enjoy her time. Oh, Stacy said usually the Verizon works fairly well. That's great. You're a special store. Not all of them do, which is interesting. We learned some of them use Comcast and not all. Yeah, it's interesting times. But with that, again, reach out with any questions. Please practice a little bit. This one should be fun and creative. And we will be talking to you guys soon. You get 35 minutes back. Woohoo. All right. Thank you, Jessica.